Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Clinic Growth Secrets Show. This is Jeff VK bringing you a special edition of the show today. I'm hyped for our guest, guys. We're going to be talking to you about how to build a content machine for your practice. And before we get into the goods, as always, if you guys get value from this individual and you learn something, which you will for certain in today's show, we do grow organically. So hit that share button, send it to somebody who would also get value from it. That could be a colleague, a loved one, a coworker, someone who just needs to hear this in their life. Again, we do not grow by paid ads or any sort of sponsors like that. So you sharing the show is the only way we can help more docs and help more people get under care. So today we have Dr. Shawn Dill, CEO of Black Diamond Club, with us. What's going on, Shawn?
What I learned something new. Jeff BK. What's up, Jeff BK?
Jeff VK with
I
Shawn
love
Dill,
it.
baby.
I love it.
So, for those that are avid listeners of the show, first and foremost, Shawn is our personal mentor. We've been working together for just shy of 60 days, and the amount of impact he's had on our business has been unmeasurable. And we're just getting started together. And so, what he's really, really good at, I mean, exceptionally good at, is strategic, innovative marketing, especially when it comes to the modern day buzzword of content marketing, right? A lot of people talk about it, but not a lot of people execute it even at all, let alone to the level that Shawn and his team execute it. So what we want to talk about today is how you can build a content machine for your office and why it's so important in today's society and how you can actually do it without creating a lot of stress for yourself and your business. So, Shawn, you know as well as me, these guys, we got to be getting on content, but for some people it's overwhelming. I mean, like, where does somebody start on this content journey? And then we can get into the logistics of how to actually execute this whole thing.
Yeah, if you'll indulge me, I'll just give you a real quick sort of high level of how I kind of arrived here, and I'll do it just super brief. I'm gonna skip fast forward all kinds of important parts. But I graduated chiropractic college in 1995, and I immediately went to the country of Costa Rica, a third world country. There was no such thing as chiropractic when I arrived. I was 24 years old. And my first year in practice was miserable. Like I didn't even speak Spanish. 24-year-old, you know everything. Well, what do I need that for? I go to a country that speaks Spanish. I can't explain to anybody what I'm doing. I mean, it's this absolute mess. I'm like dead broke at the end of one year. Thankfully, it was like kind of a crossroads, and I was like, either I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do it. I stuck it out, and at the end of my second year, I was seeing 200 people a day. What's important in there is that the highlights of that is I saw an average of 250 patient visits every day, 5.5 days a week for the next 7 years during my time in Costa Rica. And I wrote the law that regulates the practice of chiropractic to this day in the country of Costa Rica. But one thing happened to me kind of towards the end of that run. I came back to the United States and I was at Palmer at a homecoming event. And it was now in my 30s. I thought I was making a big impact, and I realized I was sitting there, and I was like, nobody knows what we're doing. I'm seeing 250 patient visits a day, and I'm not even making a dent. I end up moving back to the States. I then open up a chain of chiropractic offices that's literally based off of how I practiced in Costa Rica. Upper cervical, two bones, two sides, cash, no insurance. Just literally what we did in Costa Rica brought that here. And what I realized then is that, man, we need a bigger platform. I was teaching at Life West, and I went on this journey, which then leads into your question, is I was like, man, we need to figure out a way because we love chiropractic. We're passionate about chiropractic. And yes, social media is the great equalizer. Like I'm putting out content right next to, Ed Milet and Andy Frisella. I mean, we're all equal. Coca-Cola, Ford, Mayo Clinic, we're all equal, but we're really not, right? In the world of the algorithm picks and chooses. The algorithm has favorites. And then there's paid ads, which you know a lot about. And I was like, we just need a bigger platform. So I began this journey of seeing if I could build a bigger platform. Content is one critical part of that. And if we have time, we might talk about relationships. But if anybody's seen my interview with Jordan Belfort on the Wolf's Den podcast, I get on that podcast, I get Jordan Belfort to talk about chiropractic. And that was a big thing for me. I was like, that's interesting. Most chiropractors, for whatever reason, they all want to go on Joe Rogan. I remember a long time ago, everybody wanted to go on Oprah. But listen, or the doctors, but we've had chiropractors on the shows, and that's not enough. What we've got to do is we've got to get Joe Rogan to be a fan and talk about chiropractic. We've got to get Jordan Belfort. And that was when it clued into me. I was like, man, I want to get these guys to talk about chiropractic. And then I started to go on this content journey. And that content journey has led me to all of these people in the entrepreneurial space that I am attempting to leverage. So very important, as we discuss this, that I am attempting to leverage them and their platform. This big, I'm very transparent about this, but more so with chiropractors. I'm leveraging them and their platforms to talk about chiropractic. A lot of people are like, yeah, Shawn, you like left chiropractic. But I didn't. I left chiropractic in the sense that I'm building a platform to have a stronger and more amplified voice to talk about chiropractic. And what we want to talk about on the show today is how every single one of the docs that's listening here can do that, whether it's on a national level or on a local level, which is far easier. It's a piece of cake if you want to just dominate your local geo.
So interesting. So that the journey you went on was to actually amplify the message for like that could far transcend the current awareness. It's like we got to get in front of people with large audiences to leverage their audience to actually get chiropractic faster to the people.
My dream is that one day, whether it's Tony Robbins or it's, and people say, well, Tony's had chiropractors, right, on the stage. Tony is a chiropractic advocate. But my dream is that you have, Tony Robbins or maybe Grant Cardone at a 10X conference who, I've been fortunate to have dinner with Grant. If one day he would say to his audience, listen, because he does this with 10X Health, but I wish he would say this, guys, you guys all want to be like me, which is great. But if you want to be like me, you need to eat like me, you need to hustle like me, and you need my secret weapon. And my secret weapon, I've never shared this, my secret weapon is chiropractic. Can you imagine if Grant Cardone said that? And then imagine he said, listen, so I'm going to put on the screen 50 chiropractors who I recommend that you check out. Every single one of you, you've got to get, like, can you imagine the phones going up, people taking pictures, people would be like, I got to get, and so we just have to figure out, how do we get Grant to do that? Listen, I'm never going to be Grant Cardone. I'm never going to be Tony Robbins, but I can get close enough to them that maybe I can influence them, empower them to make statements like that. And I don't know how much like your audience may follow me or know about me. And in fact, I don't know when this will air, but for example, I have a very close and strong relationship with Michael Chandler, the UFC fighter. And everybody always asks me this, like, hey, so does Michael get chiropractic care? And the answer is yes, he does, but he's not like, I don't pour chiropractic on him, but that's not why I'm in relationship with him. Michael has a huge platform. And imagine that one day we can convert Michael not into a patient, because we just have one person that became a patient, but we need to convert him into an advocate. His platform's way bigger than mine. So depending on when this airs, UFC at the Sphere 306, I'm going to that event with Michael. I'm hoping I get on the PPV screen, because if they can find Michael in the crowd, I'm sure they'll put him on. But that's what we want. You and I were talking about that a little earlier, marketing by association. So even if I'm like half in the PPV screen, when they put Michael on there, people are going to say, who is that? And then what I'll do is, and this we will talk about today, is I will leverage social media to make sure that I put that everywhere. Here's a testament to it. If you don't believe me, go right now. If you're listening to this, go right now to Michael Chandler's Instagram page. Start scrolling. Here's who you're going to see on his page. Lots of Michael Chandler, Shawn Dill, Cody Sanchez, and Grant Cardone. Those are the people that you will see who are not named Michael Chandler. But here's what you'll notice if you scroll long enough, you will see Shawn Dill multiple times. And all that is creating relationship so that we have marketing by association, so that eventually we can amplify our voice utilizing somebody who has a bigger reach and bigger influence and bigger platform than what we have, because I could never, ever be Michael Chandler.
So interesting. I love that. And the marketing by association is we talked about that kind of at a national level, Michael Chandler, the Grant Cardones, like the figures that everybody seems to know. But one of the things you said was that it's actually easier for local to do marketing by association. Let's get into that a little bit here for these local guys who are like, hey, I've got a brick and mortar. I'm doing 50 grand a month. I want to get to 100 grand a month, but I know that I can amplify myself more. How can we execute marketing by association on the local level?
Well, two key pieces, social media and a local podcast. Let's come back to social media because that's your forte. That's where you rock and roll. Let's start with a local podcast. If I wanted to just dominate Milwaukee, what I would do is I would create a podcast. I don't know, maybe Milwaukee Today, Milwaukee Now, whatever you want to call it. And the podcast, very important because I know chiropractors are listening. The podcast has nothing to do with chiropractic. It has everything to do with Milwaukee. Now, if I really wanted to win, what I would cover most is high school sports. So let's say that I go down and I interview I ask for an interview and I get an interview with the head coach of the basketball team. Well, who's going to listen to that particular episode? Tons of people are going to listen to that. And then I ask the head coach if it would be okay if I interview the star forward. Well, who's going to listen to that podcast? Well, first of all, the star forward's parents are going to listen to that podcast. And the star forward's parents are going to share that episode with all of their friends because they're going to say, hey, you got to listen to Shawn's Milwaukee Now podcast because my son was on it. Right. And they're like, well, who's Shawn? What's Milwaukee Now? But now I'm gaining that exposure. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to put the famous custard store, the famous pizza store. These guys are local celebrities. They're known. If somebody went on American Idol, but they didn't make it past, the second round, but people still know them and I can get to them easy and I put them on. But here's the other thing I would do. When I go to the restaurant, when I go to Jeff's Pizza, I'm going to interview Jeff. I'm going to have him on the podcast. Jeff is going to be excited that he was on the podcast. Jeff's going to share it on his social circles. I'm just getting tons of exposure. Now I'm leveraging your platform, but I would also do this. I would say, hey, Jeff, I have stickers that I made. You can get those, stickers made fairly cheaply and I have a QR code and I would give it to you and I'd say, hey, put this in your window, in your door. And it would say, as heard on the Milwaukee Now podcast with a QR code. Now you're going to be super proud of it because how many podcasts have you been on? Right? Not very many. And you have this as heard on. And I would also make one as a stand up to put by the cash register. If you had tables, maybe I'd have it as an insert on the table. So, and you of course want people to hear you on the Milwaukee Now podcast. It's a big deal for you, but it's an even bigger deal for me. I'm also going to get post-production content. I'm going to chop that up, just like we're going to do with this podcast. And I'm going to ask you to share it on your socials, which you're going to do because you're proud that you're on this podcast. And then I'm going to build this massive audience of people that have watched. So local sports, huge. Parents are always proud if their son or daughter was on your podcast. And then local restaurants and local businesses, they will also engage heavily with you. And then real quickly, bang, you can build this audience. Let's not forget the popular rise of Dave Portnoy by doing pizza reviews, right? That's how Dave Portnoy becomes Dave Portnoy. So listen, on a local level, if I'm only doing Milwaukee, I can win this game so fast. I also will tell you this, local politicians. So I call and I invite the mayor to be on Milwaukee Now. It's called Milwaukee Now Podcast or Milwaukee Today. Hard for the mayor to say no. Wait, there's a podcast called Milwaukee Today. Yeah. Does the mayor of Milwaukee want to come on Milwaukee Today? No, we're not interested. Bad look as a politician. So if you want relationships, and I will tell everybody, we have a podcast called None of Your Business. Hopefully everybody will check it out. But if you have a podcast, it becomes easier to get into relationship with people because you have a calling card. The reason why I'm calling you is because I would love for you to be on my podcast. We reach out to people all the time. It's pretty amazing. It gets us in the door. And as long as a podcast is legit, but in Milwaukee, they just have to say, oh, you had Jeff's Pizza on? I love Jeff's Pizza. Now you're legit. And now the other people want to come on. But here's what I always tell people. When I do my podcast, just like right now, you and I have a relationship, but if we didn't, we're going to get 20, 30 minutes together. And what this is going to tell us this time together is, do we want to do further business development together beyond this? So I get to meet all these amazing people that are trying to come on my podcast. But even more importantly, I get to do business development beyond that. Even more importantly is I get the post-production content. So I take that content, put it on social media, amplify it. People that are fans of my guests, they are now seeing me, not because of me, but because of the person that was interviewed. And then we have what I call marketing by association. They're like, oh, Shawn knows Jay Abraham. Shawn knows Ryan Stuman or Albert Preciado, and they begin to see us with these people. And then the natural assumption is, oh, you must be good. I don't even know what you do, but you must be good.
So good. Someone listening, they may have 2 pages of notes already. After after all that was said there, and I'll amplify one thing he said there. the ability to connect with people when you have a podcast is unfucking fair. And I can swear it's my own show. If you don't like it, don't listen, right? It's unfucking fair though. I have got access to so many people in Cairo and even out of Cairo. Like before we had Clinic Growth Accelerator, we had a podcast because I don't run it anymore. I'd like to get back to it. It's called Positive Input because I was so sick of all the negative news that I was like, I'm just going to find good people and interview them. You know what I mean? And there's a lady in Milwaukee who has one of the biggest realty companies. It's called Powers Realty. You may know her, Suzanne Powers. Shout out, this was a shameless plug to Suzanne. And I was able to get access to her immediately of a kid, and I was a kid that had $0 to my name, working at a Nick's apartment, my business partner. I was able to get instant access to her. She didn't owe me any time. But instead of reaching out to somebody and saying, "Hey man, can I pick your brain?" or "Hey miss, can I pick your brain?" It's, "I'd love for you to be on the show." Like the take rate on the podcast is nuts.
Absolutely. We have an event coming up in SoFi. I've got Jay Abraham. I've got Ryan Stuman. I have the CEO of Tracy Tudor. So Tracy wasn't available. I was like, "We'll send the CEO," right? And Tracy's on $1 million listing. You are absolutely right. I don't know these people. I will know them afterwards, right? That's how you meet them, right? So yeah, that you are 100% right. If you're trying to build a strong Rolodex and you want to be the go-to person, Jay himself talks about this concept of preeminence, which means you become the community's most trusted advisor. That doesn't mean just about bones and nerves. That means that people are like, "I wonder what the best pizza place is. Let's ask Dr. Jeff because he has the Milwaukee Today podcast. He knows. I wonder who I should use as my realtor. Oh, I saw Miss Powers was on the podcast. We should probably use her because I trust him," right? And then, of course, the natural is, you need a chiropractor. Well, then they're going to you. I also want to introduce this concept. I talk about this a lot. Very important for your listeners. This whole thing has to do with this understanding that we have that every single person picks their providers before they need them. So very important. Everyone who's listening right now, knock on wood, I hope you don't need this, but hopefully right now as you're listening to this, your toilets are not overflowing. But if your toilet overflows this afternoon, you have a plumbing problem. And I will say that probably a good 70 to 80% of you listening right now, even though you don't have a plumbing problem, know who you would call if you did. And what that means is that you've already chosen somebody as your plumber. You just don't need them yet. And so this whole thing is, if we could get all of your listeners, all of your prospects, and all of your clients to get in a position where their local community has chosen them as their chiropractor, even though they haven't decided that they need a chiropractor, but they say things like, "Well, if I ever did need a chiropractor, I would go to Shawn." If I can get your clients to be in that position, literally, that is what I call domination. Like, why would I come to Milwaukee and open up a practice where everywhere I go, I'm like, "Hey, I'm a chiropractor." And they're like, "Oh, that's sweet. Do you know Dr. Jeff?" And I'm like, "God dang, why does everybody keep saying that?" Well, because Dr. Jeff is the host of the Milwaukee Now podcast, and we all listen to it. He's our guy. I don't go to him, but if I ever had to go to a chiropractor, I'd go to him. So you coming into my town, you're in a losing position because I've already positioned myself with a local podcast and on social media to where people have predisposed themselves to choose me over every other choice. That by definition is preeminence.
Massive preeminence. You told us on one of our private calls together, you said that you said the sale, I think you believe it said this, you said the sale is always happening, right? Like it's happening now. So you just gave an example of somebody who may listen to the Milwaukee Now show, who is then referring to the main chiropractor on the show if they've never even seen the fucking guy.
Right,
Like
right.
that is like the definition of pre,
Right.
like I don't go. They're like, "Oh, do you go to him?" But no, I don't. But like I would. Like if I when I'm ready to go, that's who
If
I'm
I were
going to.
you,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have a problem.
If
So
I
if
was
I
in
had
your
your problem,
shoes, yeah, if I was in
yes,
your shoes, I'd be going there for sure.
yes.
That is gold. That is absolute gold. So okay, we have this idea. Like we can create the show. We can create micro pieces of content from the show, spread them out. We can get influence of the local other businesses, get them on the show, then amplify that with ads, all that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with like the idea of creating content, right? They're like, "Oh my God, it's so intimidating. Like, I got to be in front of the camera. I got to have a script. Like, how do you guys keep up? You know, you have a philosophy of creating versus capturing. Can you dive into that?"
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. Um, People that meet me and know me personally, but meet me in real life, are always kind of struck. They will say to my team, maybe to my wife, like, Shawn's really quiet. Like, I wasn't expecting that because I see him on the podcast or I see him on stage, I see him speaking, and I wasn't expecting him to be so shy. Because I totally resonate with the introverts of the world who listening to this who are like, but I don't want to do content. Like, I don't wake up and say, wow, I want to do content. I'm living a reality show. But the reality is that we are all living a reality show. You guys listening to this podcast right now create so much content on a daily basis, but you just don't capture it. So, for example, could we set up a camera in your adjusting room and anonymize and sterilize it so I don't capture your patient? It's facing, they're on the table or it's facing the back of their head. But how many times do you get asked an interesting question throughout the day? And even the same question, if the camera was rolling and I was recording, then that's content. And I was just answering it to a patient. You can see my face, not their face. And maybe, and you know who's the king of this? Actually, this is really how he got started, was Gary Vee. So Gary Vee was going to these seminars and to these events, and D-Rock was filming these people asking Gary questions, and that was content because people kept asking him the same thing. And that's how Gary's gotten to where you really don't have an opportunity to ask him those types of questions anymore. You'd have to pay top dollar to even get that close to him. But he started it by just capturing. D-Rock captured. D-Rock really innovated the space because he was a content capturer. And Gary, what he realized is like, I'm producing content all day long. I'm just not capturing it until D-Rock came along. Well, docs are producing content all day long. And not only that, you and I were talking about from a coaching standpoint. Look, you guys go to an event. So I go to a Shawn Dill event, to a Black Diamond Club event. Well, listen, at the Black Diamond Club event, I'm going to see interesting people like Mark Murphy and Amy Spolstra. I'm going to see a lot of influential people in the space. Now, I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, hypothetically. Well, I live in Naples, Florida. But I want to have a video of me and Amy Spolstra saying, hey, Amy Spolstra, focus program creator and developer. I got to tell you something. If I were ever in Naples, Shawn would be my guy. Like, and listen, this is something that's also very important for everybody to understand. Endorsement is far more powerful than testimonial. Endorsement is far more powerful than testimonial. So if I'm a coach and I'm like, hey guys, I'm the best coach, Jeff, look at this. Shawn's the best coach, Jimmy T. You're like, whatever, that doesn't mean anything. But if someone that you know, Mark Murphy, comes to you and says, listen, you need to work with Shawn. And you're like, hey, well, Mark, is Shawn your coach? He's like, no. But he coaches a lot of my peeps. And I know, like, testimonial means that you use my service. Endorsement means I'm endorsing you. So when you go to these events and you're surrounded by all of your chiropractic colleagues, how come you don't come out of there with 10 endorsements? Same thing for you, right? I'm endorsing you right now. That doesn't mean that you guys run digital services for chiropractors. My business is coaching, so you're not running the paid traffic for coaching, but I endorse you to every single chiropractor on the planet. And hopefully that means something to some people, right? That doesn't mean that I use the service as a chiropractor because I don't even practice anymore. But what it means is I endorse you and Nick both, right? So if there's so many opportunities for you to capture, like, why not capture? I'm going to go eat. I'm going to be at my event. I'm going to talk to my clients. I have so many opportunities to capture literally gigabytes of content. And then here's the formula: capture, edit, publish, amplify. And it's easy like that. And just talk to Jeff and Nick. They can get you hooked up. And maybe if I strong arm them, maybe someday they will actually be in the business of those back end parts. So you can capture, and then they can help you to edit, publish, and amplify, because that's really the secret to really taking your message and penetrating it into the marketplace.
Absolutely phenomenal. So there's how you do it. You're not sitting down saying, what am I going to say in front of the video? From 2 to 3, I'm going to sit in front of the video camera and say this boring script that only I care about. It's like,
that sucks.
That sucks. And that, actually, I think you said it great. And I actually got this from Hermosi's book, $100 Million Leads, too. Another shameless plug, great book. He talks about, like, when you're going through your daily life, you got to have a notepad next to, because in your conversations, if they're not already captured, you need to write down what content comes from that. Like who comes from what questions come from your patients? What are they asking you? Because like you said, it's the same thing they're asking you over and over and over. So it actually, to a certain degree, creates leverage too, because at some point you might just be able to say, here's all the content dump, here's all the answers, here's a mini course for you, in fact.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and listen, Brad Lee, another one. All of his content's like kind of third person, break the wall here, and he's talking to his computer because he's got like Zoom conversations, and he's like, "Listen, I'm going to tell this to the 100 people that are on the Zoom, but I might as well capture it because then I can amplify it to thousands or millions of people through social media." And your chiropractors are doing the same thing, consults, all of this. Listen, if you're going to suck it up and, stand in front of Walmart and do a spinal screening, let's get some great capture, a content capture at least while I'm doing that as well. Because like you said, me trying to like say 1, 2, 3, go and saying something, oh man, that's like pulling teeth. And I think people look at that content and they're like, dude, like how many takes was that? Like they know it's hard.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the reality of it. It's like if you're overly scripted, you lose authenticity too.
Yeah.
So you talk about authenticity a lot, and I think Gary V talks a lot about it, and he's like, if you're not authentic as you build, you will be fucking exposed, is what you'll be. Because if you're not who you are, you know what I mean. And so I feel like maybe people when they do make content, they might feel like they get out of authenticity. They go into like this like character that's this fictitious character that they're not. But I think that's also solved by capturing, yeah?
And this is a big thing. And I give you a clue to if you're being authentic or not, because Lacey and I are fortunate. We have on our team, on our staff, a full-time videographer. And so he'll sometimes come to me and be like, hey man, we're going to do this VSL, invite people to the next Book Yourself Solid 5-day challenge. And I'll be like, okay. And so he'll get the camera and he'll hit go. And this is what happens. Listen to my voice. I'm talking to you now. This is how I speak. And then he's like, go ahead. And I'm like, hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome to the Book Yourself Solid 5-day. And so one of the things is you change your voice. Like, hey, today I want to tell you the 5 most important bones. Like, why are you talking like that? You don't talk like that. And that to me is a big indication that this is like a scripted, presented, acted piece of content versus like I was just talking, because I probably wouldn't receive you into my adjusting room and be like, hey, so what's up, Jeff? How are you doing today? Like, that's not the right
Hey,
voice.
this guy's fucking weird, dude. What happened here? Like, this guy was cool on the phone earlier, but now he's all weird and shit. Man, that's funny though. It's so true though. And I think everybody, it's funny because like in our business, like any business, like we'll build out like SOPs, and we'll screen record. We run digital agency, so we'll screen record Loom video and stuff. And it's like my first videos I made on there, I'll go back and watch that and I'm like, I don't even know who I was on that whole video. And then I see my team making videos and they're like going out of their own character. And I'm like, just be you, dude. Like don't overthink it. God,
100%.
that's good. That's awesome. So that's looking into the future here, and we want to make sure we keep your time respected as well as the listener. I mean, is this where you see it all going right now? I mean, someone might say like, "Hey, man, if I'm going to spend all this time investing in content and media production, like, is this really where the world's going?"
Yeah, and it's actually been put on steroids. I mean, when you look at some of the names that got mentioned, the Gary V's, the Alex Hormozzi's, the contemporary recommendation right now is 3 to 5 pieces of content a day. Um, our existence kind of interesting to fathom that if you read any, and maybe some people are like, what is that? But any printed newspaper cover to cover, you are exposed to more information than a person that lived in the 1800s was exposed to in their lifetime. Like that's crazy. So we are just exposed to so much stuff. So how are we going to win? Like we want everyone to know about chiropractic and the benefits of chiropractic. How are we going to win? We've got to put more content out there. I'll give you, I have a lot of these, but I'll also give, I want to hit your listeners in places that make them uncomfortable. You know that I told you that all great coaching advice is counterintuitive. It's the stuff that you're like, wait a minute, I don't know about that. That's the good stuff. So anything that we've talked about that you're like, absolutely not, Jeff and Shawn are wrong, that's the good stuff in today's episode. But here is one. I see so many people that get upset about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, and you ask it things about chiropractic and it's kind of clueless. But do you know why it's clueless? Because we have not fed ChatGPT information. ChatGPT is pulling information off of its source of information, which is the internet. So your refusal to put chiropractic content onto the internet is slanting all of the artificial intelligence to be more mechanistic and more allopathic. It is pure and simple. So later on, where is this going? Artificial intelligence is where it is going. But when people ask artificial intelligence about things, it's pulling information that we gave it. But a lot of us that are listening refuse to give it information. And this is a great test. Go to Chat GPT and type this in, tell me about, and then type your name. And many times you guys are going to see that it says the knowledge base is not big enough for me to tell you about Jeff VK. And what that means is that you have let the world down as far as content is concerned, to the point where I know you exist and you're a human being, but artificial intelligence does not know you. And that is bad, because that means in the world of omniscient intelligence, you are not a part of the conversation. So not only do I think it's the way it's going, I think that every single person that listens to the show, you actually have an obligation to make content, to feed the internet with your content. It's a race, because it happens politically. It happens on all these things where ChatGPT gets a bend, not because it's bent, because it doesn't have a bend, but because it was fed information that bent it.
That's so interesting. That's full circle, right? It's like, I don't want, like, content's overwhelming. Oh, but I can actually capture instead of create. And then when I capture, then I can edit, I can publish, and I can amplify. And then when I do that, the future becomes smarter for the whole profession as a whole. God, that's full
Yes.
circle. That's insane.
Yes.
Dude, go on and hit the share button right now if you're listening, man. This guy, it brings the value every time, man. Uh, Obviously you have BDC, you have lots of events, Black Diamond Club, you have your specific chiropractic centers. Someone listening, you know, they're like, man, this Shawn guy, he's up to something big here. We know that. Like, where can people get in touch with you? Where should they follow you, my friend?
Here's where I want everybody to start. I want you to go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble and get yourself a copy of Book Yourself Solid for Chiropractors. About a year ago, my wife and I were fortunate to acquire the Book Yourself Solid IP. Michael Port was my very first coach, so that's a full circle moment. When we acquired the IP, I was like, I'm rewriting the books, and I'm writing the books for verticals, and the very first vertical is chiropractic. I partnered with Christine Zapata. She's an amazing chiropractor out of Seattle, Washington. Rewrote the book with Michael Port. Book Yourself Solid for Chiropractors. Then visit us at bookyourselfsolid.com. I would say that's our entry point into all things Shawn and Lacey. And listen, maybe some people listen to the show and you're in a place, because this is where I was, but I today own this company. But when I first met Michael, I couldn't even afford to pay him. I was in a bad spot. If you're in a tough spot, hit me up, Shawn at bookyourselfsolid.com. I will personally send you a copy of the book. Just say, I heard you on Jeff's podcast and I want a copy of the book. And listen, I'm in a bad place. No questions asked. Send me your address. I will send you a copy of the book. Here's what I know. Read the book, take action. It will get you off the ground. It will put you in a position where you can work with people like Jeff and Nick. And then boom, sky's the limit. I want to see all chiropractors be successful, reach more people, make an even bigger impact. And listen, you all deserve to have an amazing lifestyle.
Guys, that's amazing. Make sure you check out that book. I've taken some of Shawn's book recommendations myself, and they have not disappointed. So I'll be the first to give you an endorsement on that, as we talked about on the show. If you guys got value, hit the share button. Again, we grow organically. Start making your own content. Feed the beast. You're going to become the authority locally. If you guys got value, again, share. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Dr. Shawn, appreciate you being here, my man.
Likewise, you're the best.
Appreciate you, sir. Until next time, cheers, guys.